Hi class, this is my presentation for week 4. I chose to do my presentation on Mexican Americans. I feel that living in Southern California area, Mexican Americans make up a large majority of the population here. I studied several Chicano studies courses in my undergrad, and I have a lot of experience working with English language learners within the education sector. And I feel that this is a population that, again, is a large majority of our educational system, as well as Southern California. And I feel that I wanted to speak to this group because there are several issues that need to be addressed, and I think that it's important that we are informed and properly informed with factual information on this population group so that we can better serve them as school counselors. So I decided to split up my research into a few different sectors: education and language, social organizations, research, risk factors, and how school counselors can help this particular population. I found some alarming information and I found some very interesting information throughout this research, and I cited all of my references down here below. So let's go ahead and get started with the education and language. Within this, there were some very alarming and sad statistics that I found. Throughout the coursework that we've studied, in this semester and in others as well, we know that there is a big gap between the educational system and our Mexican American or Latin American families and students. So let's go to this first point. Simply the lack of knowledge about the U.S. education system is something that I wanted to bring to your attention. Mexican Americans and their families simply have a lack of knowledge about the U.S. education system. This includes how the educational system works, testing regimes, college applications, acceptable behavior. It could branch into a plethora of different things. And then if you take a look at the statistic here, Hispanics have the lowest rates of high school and college degree attainment, which hinders their chances for stable employment. We all know in this current economy how valuable higher education can be and how difficult it can be to get a stable job without a high school degree, let alone a college degree. So having the highest rates of high school dropouts and college degree attainment is very alarming and definitely something that we as school counselors need to pay attention to. This point can really speak to that statistic. 11% over age 25 have earned a bachelor's degree. So only 11% of Mexican Americans aged 25 and over have earned a bachelor's degree, compared with 17% of blacks, so they're lower attainment of degrees comparative with other groups, 30% of whites, and 49% of Asian Americans. So right there, we know that this is a population group that is really struggling and definitely needs our attention. Even more troubling is more than 1/4 of the Hispanic adults have less than a 9th grade education. So you can understand their concern and misinformation with the U.S. education system because the parents simply don't understand because they haven't been educated themselves. So there is a severe lack of knowledge. Hispanic households are less likely than white households to participate in pre-kindergarten literacy activities. This includes reading to your child, visiting a library, museum, anything of the sort. There is a severe pronounced difference between Hispanic families who speak English in the home and those who do not. Most of the research that I found had much higher levels of literacy, achievement scores, testing scores associated with Mexican American families who spoke English at home, and very, very low scores associated with Mexican American families who only spoke Spanish at home. Additionally, if more than one parent, so for example, if both parents spoke English at home, the child was much more likely to have successful grades and scores and achievement attain more, as opposed to only one parent speaking English. So speaking English in the home is extremely important, I found in my research. So this is something that was very sad to me and very alarming when I looked up, when I began researching for this. So social organizations and research, I have hardly any information here. And it's not because I didn't do my due diligence, it's because there simply isn't a lot of outreach programs, organizations, and so on and so forth for this group. I was really alarmed with this. There are some organizations that I found for individuals that are already degreed, like the Hispanic League of Lawyers or the Hispanic architectural groups, but there was hardly any information on students and how they can get support and outreach programs for students before they've reached, a high level, so to speak. So really the only thing that I was able to include in here was attending a Head Start program. They found a lot of correlation with Hispanic children that were enrolled in Head Start performed better on a series of cognitive tests than those who did not attend any preschool program. So we know this is pretty much standard across the board, juxtaposed to any nationality group, whether it be blacks, whites, Asians, Mexicans. Regardless of your background, attending some sort of a education preschool program is beneficial for anyone. But I was very disappointed with the lack of resources for Mexican American students. And I really was very alarmed with that. So unfortunately, I couldn't include much in this area, and I would have liked to, because I think it's useful for us as school counselors to provide those outreach resources for our future students. So additionally, unfortunately, there is a plethora of information I have included in our risk factors section. So we know what to look for as school counselors. So having a mother who did not complete high school, that's a serious risk factor. So again, if your mother or parents did not complete high school, how do you expect them to accurately help guide you through high school if they just simply don't have knowledge themselves? Living in a single parent home, that is another risk factor. Living in a low income or welfare dependent household, you can imagine the struggles that one must have to face living in such a circumstance. And then having parents who speak a language other than English in the home, again, that was considered a negative factor. So simply only speaking Spanish at home could be very detrimental to a student's development and learning once in school. Something interesting that I found regarding family life is that there was a strong sense of family among Hispanics, and I think that's visible in my district and with my experience working with Mexican American students. A lot of it was predominantly reinforced by religion, mainly Catholicism. And then this had a strong correlation, making single parenthood less likely to occur than other nationality groups. So 47% of Hispanics who primarily speak Spanish find divorce acceptable, compared with 72% of the U.S. population as a whole. So this means that there are more families that are likely to still be married within the Hispanic communities comparative with other families. That there's going to be higher rates of divorce, simply because the Hispanic family and communities do not find divorce as acceptable as the rest of the population. And I thought that was an interesting statistic. Again, Hispanic families in which the parents speak Spanish at home are more than twice as likely to be below the poverty threshold as comparative to non-Hispanic whites. So it's very important that we as educational professionals stress the importance of our families speaking English in the home to their children and not just Spanish. We really need to stress the importance of that. So, with all of this alarming research, right, how can school counselors help? So, school counselors can help, and these are the two main things that I've found through my research. we need to encourage literacy, and we need to educate parents. So if you take 2 things away from my presentation, please take these 2 things away. Encourage the importance of literacy. That means reading to your child, speaking English in the home, the importance of preschool education, encourage literacy, and then educate parents. Remember, most of these parents have not graduated high school themselves, so we really need to be an instrumental figure educating them so that they can educate and help their children. Hispanic children aged 3 to 5 are less likely to be read to compared with non-Hispanic children. Families in which the primary language at home is Spanish have especially low rates of participation in literacy activities. So please encourage these 2 activities. Another thing that's very alarming is, remember, as school counselors, we are advocates for our students. And one of the main things that we need to remember is to stop expressing any biases towards any group. Although we may make an effort to do this, there are other school and educational professionals, such as teachers or other faculty members, that may express biases. So it is our role and responsibility to prevent teacher bias, okay? So this means some teachers base their initial ratings of students in part on that particular student's ethnicity. So this teacher bias is reduced as teachers come to know the students over time, but initially they may be judging the student based upon their background. So for example, just because they are a Mexican American student, that teacher may have a particular expectation for that student as opposed to if they were of a different nationality or background. So we need to kind of bridge the gap here, and we need to act as advocates for our students and make sure that any faculty member is not expressing any biases. Hispanic students and their predominantly non-Hispanic teachers encourage disengagement from academic work and the lack of academic guidance pertaining to course selections and college choice. So again, making sure that our students are being informed, that they're being treated fairly by their teachers, and that they are being encouraged to attend four-year college universities. This is our role, to make sure that this is being done. Hispanic students have the highest high school dropout rate, okay, comparative with blacks and whites. This is predominantly why I wanted to study Mexican American or Hispanic students, simply because of this reason. This is such a large mass of our population in Southern California. Mexican Americans make up a huge demographic of our population, okay? So we really need to curb our services towards them. They are a huge part of our population. We need to continue to bridge that gap because Hispanic students are continuously lagging behind non-Hispanic white students and continuously dropping out of high school at a much higher rate. So some of the things that they can benefit from would be strategies for helping children achieve academic success, successful transitions into post-secondary school, and then following would be the labor force, and then take what is known, the things that we know about scholarships, the things that we know about letters of recommendation, and make it accessible to those Hispanic families and their communities. So don't keep things hidden from them. Make sure that they're informed. Over-inform them. Remember, most parents have not graduated from high school, so we really need to be extremely informative. And over here I've included my resources. I found a plethora of resources here, whether it was on journals, on governmental websites. JSTOR was a great resource for me, so please feel free to check out any of the resources there. Once again, I think this is a great population to study. I'm very happy I chose to research Mexican Americans, and I hope that you guys take some of this information and really utilize it when you are working as school counselors. Thank you very much, and I will see you all in class.